Just watched another Matrix movie. It was either the second or the third one. Just short of the end. Got the energy from it. Where Neo did his thing. The TV distracted me there for a moment. I'm going to turn that off. Wasn't sure what I'm going to say. Had a desire to talk, to express. It's like I want to get set further free. I want to express in even more wilder, more powerful ways. There's this feeling of, however, not trying to demand that I say anything spectacular. It's somewhere like in between all that, of relaxing and just allowing whatever to come out, like the wisdom or this one inside even more. It's more of that. It's like I want more wisdom. I want to be expressed from a place of a very real, open, but it's rather like I'm accessing, or I want to access. I get a feeling of getting closer to accessing a knowledge and being able to express and be one that reaches beyond where I'm normally reaching from. It's like I can feel it, and it's not always there. It's like I crescendo to it a bit. That it opens, it gets closer, that there's this even greater alertness. It reminds me of this wild experience I had in Rhode Island just now, to some degree. It's like I just want to peel off further and to experience life with even less filters. Yeah, and so it's a lot about me falling and opening deeper. Like this, allowing the alertness to continue to happen. And it's like this, it's like, it's like pressing a lever or pulling a switch or something, and I don't have that switch. I don't know how to pull that switch. It's like it needs to be done in a non-physical way. And there's this fairly clearly some kind of an element of surrender, of like, this one opening and surrendering more, of letting go more. It's like letting go of the things I've learned and being the one and coming from a place and having the wisdom happen. It's like this transformation that potentially can occur on the inside. Like I mentioned Rhode Island, how I just quite lost myself in depths of wisdom. I lost myself is a big comment, and it was scary. And yet there's this expansive alertness and openness to a new way of experiencing things in, like consciousness. And I said after that time I wanted that. I take it. There was a little fear back then with it. And this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. And it's such a dropping of, there's a surrender, there's such a dropping of the normal mind boundaries. And some kind of from the inside, a release. I like that expression, it seems accurate. But it just happened, like that time in particular, when it did happen. I mean, it's just like there's a new filter that's pulled away, and now life is totally different. And I guess that's the most classic deep, I say deep form of like enlightenment, like what that experience is like. I've had these 3 or 4 wonderful experiences that have changed me, that have, who am I and what is life? It's allowed me to just to peel some layers back and experience and be in, to experience life differently, to experience being alive differently. And yet there's a question like, I want more. There's a question like, rather, folks who have the more blatant enlightenment have a deeper peeling. I know enough that it's not about grasping. So it's really just, I mean, I'm not saying the word exasperation, but it's almost of that element that there's just a falling away. I don't care, I fall to my knees, I just want to be this receptacle of openness. And when I say those words, it's not as powerful. There's a bit of distraction. It's like I hear myself saying it or something. And I get closer to that just by sitting in that space. And just by surrendering and having that experience brings me closer more than saying the words. I just would love to fall into that. I love that greater level of openness and alertness. And I guess a lot of it could be scary. That change, how life is so different, but I want that. I would like that. It's like in the Matrix taking the pill. it's like, I'm going to go into this new frickin' way and let's go. But it's not an act of taking the pill per se. It's more subtle than that. It's simply really opening in a very genuine, surrendering, like purposely releasing the things in the mind that are set up there to like control the experience and what has helped me to be who I am. It's like releasing those more, cutting those ties. I just went through a little step-by-step there, over a 3-4 second period of time, and I had a sense of like a little bit more humor and relaxation, and a little bit like over time, how that could be a path, that could be a way, that could be like the doorway. But in the midst of all of that, there's this alertness and openness and just willing to be alive and be the one that I am with less boundaries, with less mental thoughts of attachment in particular, just a greater naked openness. So it's like continuing to purposely, or with some volition, I guess, of alertness. And then with that alertness, it's sort of like one could say of being aware of what's in between the sounds. It's not that exact thing, but it's this alertness of listening without these, these structures. It's listening and being open and looking and showing up where I'm willing to be aware of a more expansiveness. I'm willing to look beyond the normal constraints, the normal way, the normal patterns. That sounds like how Adyashanti and others would describe as being a very effective way to make this kind of a further spiritual path, this further opening, getting into this place where grace happens, where direct experiences happen. Yeah, so alertness and openness and surrender and removing. I should read Adyashanti's little book again, which is like his little ABC book on doing the type of path to nurture and with grace have these additional experiences. But there's just this great openness, this great willingness to have to be oneself. To be open to, the winds, you get blown around some because you're no longer planting stuff in the ground real hard from which you're trying to live from. There's a greater just open vision, and this vesicle that gets to experience this greater freedom and be expressed, but it's like the butterfly, how it gets blown in the wind and sort of lands on something. It's very, free-flowing, it's here. Butterflies totally have that type of flying pattern in the air. It feels like I get a greater sense of, like the path I could explore. I get a greater sense of how it is. And how I can, it's like flies getting out of a jar. They go up and they hit the surface. And of course the story is that after flies hit it a certain number of times, they no longer even try. It's sort of like with relaxation and with openness and a carefreeness and like I don't care. I think that's sort of important too. It's like giving up enough that I don't care, I'm just going to. I'm just gonna let it be. That feels good. That feels like the right territory in general. At greater openness and really expressing, not being, more carefree, less ego is where I'm sort of thinking with that. There's this alertness to all, with a greater surrender, with a greater freedom. And it's like this greater receptiveness, this greater willingness, this greater drinking from that bottle or whatever, that glass, of that level of openness and that level of I'm just falling and surrendering and I'm just going to be blown in the wind with that. I'm just going to show up in this way and just really fall with that. But I've always been attracted to the spiritual path, to the direction of the kinds of things I'm talking about in general. That feeling of a greater expansiveness. Greater alertness and openness. And so, as one does that, as I do that from what I'm aware of, there's a greater freedom, there's a greater outsourcing from deeper inside, and there's like wisdom comes from a different place. It's just allowing all of that to be there with less of a concern about this one, and more of a throwing of myself over, throwing oneself, myself, over to that way. That alert but extremely open. That innocent but just so open, open to love and open to anything. Anything. It's like, this thing of being willing to die before you die, some of this classic stuff that's talked about in the spiritual path. And I mean, I'm right sort of there in what I'm describing. And I'd like to then be able to show up in the world. I've been around politics, right? That's almost like a messy word. And especially when I'm focused in like this. But, I have a definite desire to be able to show up in life and be in a way, just to be so open and to be able to receive and share in life, to speak from and be from a deeper, broader, more surrendered, lovingly alert. And again, you get to this place of, this surrender, this falling more deeply to, essentially it's removing things that are like in the mind that are stabilizing the experience. That's pretty good. It's like being willing and finding a way and to absolutely have a big exhale and to live in the space, to show up, to really be more naked. But it's not just about this absolute frickin' gotta be absolutely naked. It's like a deeper, softer, just removing the filters, removing the stabilizing bars, and in an alert, open way. Probably less striving and more deeply falling, deeply succumbing to that way of living. It feels right. It feels pretty close. It feels good. You know, I feel like there's a calling, there's a desire. I want to have the wisdom and to be this one that clearly transcends, let's say, politics. You know, that just goes to the core, the openness of what is evident then with you know, the beauty, the clarity, the simpleness. Not afraid to die, would be just like, and one other piece there in a way. But less from a, like, okay, I'm going to do that, I'm going to fall, I'm going to be in that. Less of that and more of being in that absolute space. So there we have it, you know. Camera goes off, get up and I move, go about my stuff, go to sleep. It's the end of the night. I like the falling into the camera, I like the concentration, I like the showing up, the focus, the alertness. I like the piercing manner in which I'm speaking to this topic, this one expressing in this area. Yeah, nice. You know, I'm experiencing some of that, the freedom and the alertness to the more, the willingness to allow that and be alert to it. And this piece of minimizing my stabilizing bars as I do any of this. And as I explore and have that alertness and, breathe freely and open to a greater expansiveness of how it is in life. It's sort of like, is it ESP? Yeah, it's ESP. I mean, not trying to go crazy with it, but just being more alert to it of whatever that is, of how things can be there's more, and so, you know, removing layers, seeing things more clearly. Yeah, that's what I want. Nice. So I think we can call that a full expression to this point. So we turn the camera off and we move on. Loving it all. Thank you. Thank you.